Hdmi. 3, 2, 1.
Hello guys, Junior back again. I thought I'd do a final video on the setup of my Vewlix cab. All the mods I've done to it and all the extra bits I found over time which I needed, and what equipment I've actually got in there, and hopefully this video will help somebody else set up their cab to exactly what they want, to running consoles and various other things through it. So pretty much that's what the cab looks. I got my neon pink lights around it. Looks cool in the dark, and that's what it looks like on the floor. On the side is a few extra bits and TV and some consoles which I've got connected. I'll show you all that works. So let's get a bit closer. So we'll go with the first mods. It's not exactly a mod really. I got my Bub and Bob on the top, my Tato Bub and Bob, and I've got a little wooden sign. I seen this on eBay. It was like a tenner. I haven't got room for a full-size marquee, as you can see, because there's a shelf behind it. So I just thought this was quite cool. It's made of wood and they've painted it to make it look like it's really old and Tato, and for a tenner I thought it was quite cool, so I ended up buying it. The first mod, as you see, is the LED strip behind the Vewlix red marquee. This one, I did have some normal LEDs through there, but they were too bright, and because the tops of them were misted over, it didn't disperse the light very good. So that strip is slightly different. It's the same as the pink strip as well here. It's basically, the LEDs are set behind this, or like an opaque background, so basically it diffuses the light. So you can see the strip there, but when you sat down on the cab and you're playing it, you can't see it at all, and it lights up the marquee rather nice. The obvious mod, which I've done here, which I click that, I've changed the screen. The cab came with a 720p or a 1366 by 768 screen, arcade screen, which looked pretty fantastic, I gotta admit, for especially the majority of retro gaming I'm playing on this anyway. The screen looked pretty amazing, and because it's lower resolution, it suited really well. But I was lucky enough to have a chance for a 1080p arcade monitor out of a Vewlix Diamond Black machine, and I couldn't pass it up, so I ended up buying the 1080p monitor and swapping it out. Swapping the monitor out is really easy. You literally have to take the side panels off. These screws top and bottom, you take them off on both sides, and then you turn the cab round, take the back off, and then you can basically take 4 screws out and push the screen out. Really easy to do, to be honest. You can do it on your own, quite easy, but be warned, the screens are roughly about 24 kilos, so you gotta have a good hand on them. The second mod I've done, see the stickers I put on there, I managed to get myself a Hay sticker and a Tato station. I had a problem when I first had the cab. I had a problem with that speaker there. As you can see, there's a normal standard round speaker in at the moment. When I had it, they had like a flat square speakers, and the cab worked fine, but when you turned it up, that speaker basically cut off, and then after about a week or two, the whole left hand side stopped working. I found out after lots of digging around with multimeter that the speakers are set in series left and right, so basically if one of the speakers on the one side goes out, it basically turns the one off from the bottom out as well. And I couldn't recover the speaker because the speaker was pretty much faulty and broke. So in the end, I had a look around line. I found a couple of forums, and I ended up, I don't know if you can see, I ended up changing out the speakers for Dayton audio speakers. They're really nice quality, full range speakers, and I ended up doing it for all 4. The bottom ones, as you can see down there, were really easy. They were literally just unscrew the old speaker, take the box out of you had to basically strip all this down, take the box out, and the other speakers would just fit in there. The top speakers though, because they had the slightly different square speakers, I had to modify the box, so I had to get a Dremel unit and cut away the box to fit them in, but they fit perfect now. And I wired all them up, and they do sound better than the original speakers that were in yet. I'll give them that, and they got a lot more range to them as well. So look, what else do we get? The panel itself, as you can see, I've got the move strip. That move strip is actually for an Astro City, but I I basically did some playing around with it in a photo editor and managed to get it to fit that panel. And I got them printed. They printed on like a thick plastic mylar. So they're not paper, it is actually a plastic mylar. And I had 4 printed, and I think if you look up, I think they came out pretty damn nice. And that's the one for Battle Back Raid. The other elephant in the room, if you notice, compared to a standard panel, I have got an 8-button panel with 2 buttons on the side. So normally you get a 6-button and there's a 7th button, which is pretty much this one at the top. And you get a start, that's it. So Alberto, I can't remember where he is now, but you can find him on forums, makes Repro panels. So I got him to make me a Repro panel, and I wanted 8 buttons, and I also wanted a start and a coin button. So I could put coins in here, but it's going to get old quick, that is. So I wanted a coin and start button. So I ended up negotiating with him and running a few things past him, and he done me a really nice panel. I will say that this panel seems just as good quality as the original panel. You probably won't see it, but the only thing is at certain angles you can see sort of like streaks in the red. You can probably see it there. When you're looking at the panel, you can't see it. It's just at certain angles. But apart from that, the panel's very nice, and all the buttons and everything fitted lovely. The other mod, I got a PlayStation. I'll take that out of me. I'll leave that there actually. I added some extra buttons. As you can see on the right hand side, I added a USB. So that's USB 3 ports. One goes to the PC and the other one goes to my PS4. So I can pretty much, because it's a single player panel, so if somebody wants to grab a stool, I can get a joystick and they can plug the joystick and we can play doubles on stuff. The second mod I did was the volume rocker. You hear the volume going up and down. I did look around online how to do this volume rocker, and there was some people were buying them and everything, but essentially all you need is a potentiometer and some cables. I did try that with a standard audio potentiometer, and what it would do is it would work, but it wouldn't cut the sound completely off. So it didn't really, I wasn't happy with it. So in the end, what I had to do, I had to buy an Alps audio potentiometer and then wire up some cables, and that works perfect. So all I do is literally turn the amp up pretty much almost full blast, and you can use the volume on the front of the cab then to adjust the volume. That is a godsend, I have to admit, other than going down underneath the cab trying to adjust the volume. And especially when playing arcade games on Mister or different machines, the volumes are all different. So that's a godsend, that is. I also added, next to that was a PlayStation home button. That is, you need that. You need that for syncing pads. You need it for the Xbox for syncing pads. So you needed that. I've also added a button for the touchpad because some 360 games, say like the Cave ports, require a touchpad. So I added that. Next to the touchpad is the autofire for the Brook converter. So pretty much I'm using a Brook converter inside here. And I set up a button for autofire. My only complaint about autofire on the Brook converters is basically it's not very fast. So it's not particularly that useful, to be honest. But it's there anyway. The sort of nub you see above, that on the Brooks you have the ability to change the stick to be the left analog or the D-pad. And generally you don't need to use it that often, but on PC you need it. You need to have the option. So if I want to change the arcade stick to pretend to be an analog stick, I can click that in and it will change it to the analog. So that pretty much allows me to use any PC game. And I can turn it back in, it'll go back to standard D-pad. Very useful indeed, that is. And there is wires you can wire off the Brook board for it. The other thing is this is a button which I've got going to a KVM switch. What this does is changes my Brook in between the different inputs. So there's 4 inputs into it, and it goes between the different machines I've got in here, and you can just click it and it'll swap in between them. Very useful indeed. So here's the panel. What I'll do, I'll open the panel and show you the stuff I've done on the inside. These are the extra move strips. So I'll move these out of the way. So with the panel, I've got a couple of things, and this is like a wee dock, and I basically ended up buying. I didn't want to cut anything. I wanted to keep it as original as possible, so if I ever needed, I could always put it back into JVS and use something JVS. So there's a guy in France that sells all these looms you can get. So I ended up buying a loom off him that converts the Vewlix loom to the Brook fighting board, which is there. And this is all plug and play. And I did add a couple extra wires, but I used plug-in connectors, so I can just pull them off. So basically, if I wanted to, you could unscrew this panel, unplug them and take the whole thing out. Or I could just unplug these and plug it all back into the original connectors, which is nice. This is a good idea for you guys. The Brook board, what I found out was, when you first turn the Brook board on, and whatever is connected to it, it will auto sync to that console or computer, so it'll set itself up as whatever. Like, say if you plug into PlayStation, it'll auto configure the PlayStation. But when you click to a different input, it still thinks it's PlayStation, or it still thinks it's X input for the PC, or it still thinks it's Switch input. And what I was doing was I was pulling the power cable out and pushing the power cable back in, and it would resync itself then to wherever the new console is. Also, sometimes if you want to use like a switch on you, you have to hold down these two buttons when doing switch, when you turn it on, or you have to hold them two buttons down when you use other things. And when you're trying to juggle a USB lead in and out while holding buttons down, it gets tricky. So this is a damn godsend. This is completely getting this on you. That by here is literally a power switch, but most of them, if you look online, most of them are just power only, but this one is power and data. So what I did was I got a power and data USB and a little short USB cable which go into there, goes into the power unit, and then off around into the KVM switch underneath. So if I switch inputs and my controls are not working, I literally just got to turn it off, turn it back on, and then all of a sudden everything will work. As I say that now, the bloody switch, the mister's not working. But basically it allows you to plug and play and swap things on. Sometimes you've got to reset the mister, but generally that has become incredibly useful, especially for PC when I'm swapping into stuff and playing. That's definitely a tip, is to pick yourself up one of them. It'll save you a lot of hassle. I don't know whether you can see it. I've got a limited edition Seimitsu LS32 stick in here. And what's nice about the panel that Alberto makes, he puts a standard mounting bracket on there, so you can mount any stick. The only problem with the original panels is they only work for Sanwa, and when you take the mount off, you can't mount anything to it. The stick would be too high. So you have to try and find a Seimitsu mounting bracket, but with Alberto it's just a standard bracket, which is brilliant. And there's the wiring for the actual buttons. So that's the panel. The other thing I've done as well, if you may notice, the joystick looks slightly different. Reason for that is this is a detachable ball top. So basically I can pull that up and pull the ball top off. There's the actual, if I show you the actual thing, that's the actual ball top, and there's a little mechanism that pulls up like that. I know it sounds like it's stupid for an arcade machine, but if I wanted to use my, as you'll see underneath there, that is a Boardmaster Super Gun, and I've got nowhere to really put it. But if I detach the ball top off, I can basically put the Boardmaster on the panel, and it fits perfect on the panel now. And I can use my Freemeister, which I've got the cyber there, and all that's connected to the cab, so I can play jammer stuff on the cab. And basically to put it back on, you just pull it back up and then clip it back in. Oops, I didn't pull it up enough, and clip it back in. I was wondering whether you would find like you'd be a bit loose on there or anything like that, but no, it's perfect. It's great. So that's the other mod I've got. As you can see on the top, there's a PlayStation pad which I use for PlayStation obviously, and behind there is just the iPad. And I got a keyboard for the PC I got in here, and I've got a keyboard for the Mister, because you'll need that basically. So it's only the computer ports you need the keyboard for the Mister, but the PC you definitely need a keyboard. And hiding down there is a Retrobit, oops, upside down. Retrobit SNES pad with analog sticks, and if I need to play anything analog on arcade, anything dual sticks or anything like that on any arcade games, I can use this pad to use dual stick games, which is quite handy. And all that goes down into the Mister itself, like so basically a couple of the Sega games are dual sticks. So we'll cut the video by here, guys, and then I'll get comfortable sat down. I'll show you what's on the inside of the cab. Right, guys, here's the bottom of the arcade cab. There's the front door, so I'll pull the front door off. I haven't got the front door locked in, and I will explain why. Right, so the first mod I've done, I got an LED strip. I can change colour on it going across the top, which lights up the floor, which is quite funky. And you see there's a lot of cables in these cable clips. You can buy these on Amazon. These are really good, by the way. I've cut them in half to fit them on you, but they grip super well, and they grip the cables really good. There's a little sensor for my remote for my KVM switch, and cables go across there. What these cables are basically, there's a power supply for a 360 and a switch by there. That goes across here and then goes down and goes up to the 360 I've got by there, and the switch stock which I've got by there, also the frame meister. And there's also some HDMI cables that go off through these clips as well, and all that is powered so I can play everything on the cab. As you notice, if I put my hand in there, everything lights up. It may look like a bit of a mess, but it's very tricky to get all that tidy, and since it's underneath out of the way, I've got it tidy as is and I don't really care. So basically what these are USB charged lights. You can get them they're meant for cupboards and things like that. What these do, they've got a little sensor on them. You can put them on permanent, or you can use them on sensor, and you charge them up on USB. They last ages, and they're basically magnetized. So basically you go in the cab, you just shove them on there, and off they go. They also come with a metal strip with a sticky backing, so you can use them on anything essentially. Super handy, especially in the cab, because you can see everything in the cab. At the back there's a fan as well, which I also had to change because the fans were dreadful and really loud, so I put a silent fan on the inside. So right then, where do I start? That's the question. So KVM switch, all my 4 inputs go into the KVM. The one goes to the monitor in the cab, and the other one comes out of the cab here, across here, then it goes up and across and goes to my PC on the other side of the room. So basically I can output the cab to the PC, which I use for streaming. Could also play it on the PC if I wanted to, but I use all that for streaming. Underneath that then is my KVM switch. I'm not using it as a KVM though, I'm literally just using this switch as a USB switcher. It was incredibly cheap. It was 15 quid. Apparently supports 1080p in multiple resolutions and runs off USB, which is super handy, and seems to work perfect. And you can't get it anymore, which is a bit of a shame. It would be worth picking up a spare one just in case. You can plug various things into it. Like if I move that out of the way, there's a keyboard and mouse input as well. But literally, I'm just using it for USB. Simple as that. Underneath that then is a Intel NUC Hades Canyon PC. This is a pretty damn good mini PC. It's surprisingly powerful for what it is. I think it's got like a 1060 equivalent graphics card and 32 gig of RAM. It's a quad core processor, but it's got 8 threads, and I think it boosts up to something like 4 gigahertz. I've got like 2 terabytes of Cyberpunk Rocket storage in it. It's, for this cab, it's perfect. It's a beast. It pretty much plays everything I chucked at it. Everything I've played on Steam, the fighting games and everything, they just all work perfect on you. And there's lots of options for adding extra storage and stuff. Very good. I'm really happy with this. I use it all the time. It's very, very good. as you can see on the side of that, that is my Mister setup, and this is my MT32 MIDI audio unit, which goes on the side as well. So it allows you to play certain Mister cores like the Amiga and PC, and like the Sharp X6000 support. Some games support MIDI. Not everything works, but it sounds damn good when it does work. That's all I can say. Underneath that then, I'll put my hand in it to make sure it goes. Underneath that is my PS4 Pro. That's pretty much just going to stay in here now because I've upgraded to PS5. So I've got the Pro in here. It's output at 1080p with super sampling, so it looks great and plays everything on the PlayStation essentially. This is where it gets interesting. I don't know if you can see in there, these clips, that's the full-size clips. If you might not be able to focus on it, but I've used that to hold the VGA cable. In there, it might look a mess, but in there is a six-way it's a six-way basically power sockets. What I've actually done is on the back of the cab you get the power that comes out, but the power is 110 volt Japanese power supply, so you need to put it into a step down. So what I decided to do was, instead of having multiple step downs all over the place, I thought, see if I can put the step down in the cab. So I don't know whether you can see, but there, right in the middle, that thing here is my step down. There's the JVS power supply, which I've unplugged at the moment, and then under there, oops, as I put this back on, if I pull this off, it'd be easier. I can show you. So yeah, there we go. So that's my step down. There's the JVS on the left, and then there's the standard power for the pad for the cab, and then underneath that, right at the back, I don't know if you can see, there's another power, but that I've disconnected that because it just does the old monitor. So what I did was I routed the power from the back of the cab back into the cab, fitted the step down underneath, and then I've got that plugged into the front of the step down, and then I've got the power from the step down coming up into the six-way, and then the six-way goes out to the cab. So literally there's just one plug coming out of the cab and everything is plugged in. So let me put this back in here. So it looks a bit of a mess in there, but I've literally got all the plugs that everything is in your users. This is a recent addition. I needed an extra plug. None of this is overloaded. It's well under the wattage of these plugs uses. It's probably maximum. The PC only is at like 100 watt max. So, you know, the maximum wattage coming out of this is probably like 300 watts maybe at the most. These might be a little bit more, but there's still nothing like it. So what I did was I had to buy one of these cube extensions because I needed one extra plug, and I'll explain why in a minute. So I managed to get that plugged in, and I've just got my PC plugged into it, and I've got my amp for the cab, which is what we'll come to next. And that's also got USBs on here, which is handy, so I can use it to charge things. And I've also got a USB plug here. So it looks a bit crazy, but it's limited space, one shelf. That's pretty much all I can do. But it works. It all works. Nothing's, you know, overpowered or anything. And at the end of the day, I haven't got everything on at the same time anyway. So I only turn the PC and the PlayStation on when I use it. So the only thing that stays on continuously is the Mister. And the majority of the time, I'm not, you know, if I'm playing on the PC, the Mister's just powering this. So it's not really sat there doing much. So that's what the inside looking. The amp, if I open this up, if I can open it up. Right, so I've opened the side door up. This is where the coin mech and everything is. You could connect this up to a button actually if you wanted to, and do it that way, or you could have it so you put coins in. But if I do that again now, a minute. There's the original. When I had to change them on, I had to change the remote or the control as they call it. It wouldn't fit on you properly because it was slightly too short, so I ended up just bending the pins out, and that's perfect. So that gives you all your controls of your monitor, and then that's for your JVS. And that was the original. The original soundboard is behind there, and that's the volume for it. Hence why I've got the volume on the cab, because you've got to keep reaching down into it. Well, there's nothing wrong with the sound, the amp is in here. But it's all for the high end. There's nothing on the low end of the spectrum on it. So basically it's all high end. I understand that, because when you're in an arcade and there's lots of stuff competing for things, low end sounds, you're not going to hear you, so they're all competing, so it's more high end, and I wanted a bit more bass. So what I did in the end, I ended up buying this amp, which you can see down in here, which is the one with the light on it, and I've done like a cable bypass, so everything I can still plug back into the original amp, no problems at all. And so I haven't actually cut anything off. I just basically added some extra cables, audio cables on, that'll go back into the back of the amp, and but sounds definitely better. I've literally got a lot more bass now than I had before. I've got the bass turned up quite a bit, and the cab sounds a lot better. It's not so how can I say, it's not so shrill as it was before, where it's all high end. Now there's a lot more bass, so the overall sound quality is a lot better. And I was thinking about getting a better amp, but to be honest, I think that amp does the job. I don't think I got any problems. I haven't screwed it to the side of the cab. What I've done is I got some industrial Velcro, and I've just Velcroed it to the side of the wall. This thing is not moving at all. To be honest, it's bloody hard to get it off, but I could easily take it out. It'd take me a few minutes to take it out, unplug it, and plug the original amp back in if I wanted to. So it's all modular, so literally it's not I can put everything back original really quick, essentially. That's what I wanted to do. And down in there, I'll get the light to come back on again. Down in there is the power supply for the cab. So the other thing was locks. This cab had all the locks drilled off. I think what a lot of them do, because they don't come with keys. So I bought some locks off Amazon, and I fitted them all in here, and they all work perfect. They did come with the new backs for the locks, but all the original backs were in the cab, so I've used the original backs, and I've replaced all the locks. So what I've used is these type of locks. I don't know if you can see it, the round ones, and if I can get that going in there. So basically I can lock the cab now, and in here would be the standard coin drawer, but I've just got some spare parts and stuff in there, so I can lock the cab and do everything. So I'll turn that back on. So as you see, there's with my matrix switch, I can switch between the 4 inputs. I've got the the PC, the PlayStation, and the Mister, and then I've routed one USB out then to the side, which I'm using. I can use in the switch, or I can use in the Framemeister at the top, and I can plug various other things into it. The other thing I can do as well, because I'm using a Framemeister, literally my consoles at the top and across the shelf, I can use all them on the cab as well, which is very useful indeed. And because it's a brook, you can buy the other brook converters for the other consoles, and you can daisy chain the brook into the other ones and then use all the other consoles on you. So literally I've got the ability of all the HD stuff, the Mister, the Boardmaster playing originals if I wanted to, plus the 360, the Switch, and whatever other consoles I plug into this, 240p ones, I can just buy an adapter and play them all on the control pad, which is very nice. So I'm gonna get up a minute and show you one other thing. Bit awkward. One other thing, the lock for the panel. This basically goes back and forth and locks the panel. The lock that goes in here, which you may be able to see it, is not a standard lock. It doesn't sit, as a standard lock does. It sits at an angle. So basically the lock needs to go in at that angle. That's the standard angle the lock sits in. You can't buy one. You can't get a lock to fit in here. And the only way to get one of those locks is to buy them off Tato themselves. So what I did was, I found a slightly different lock. I got the metal piece and I ground down all the sides of the metal piece on it. So basically, it's locked at the moment. I can actually use this again now, and I can lock the top of the panel. Where before, unless you buy one of these locks off Tato, you can't do it. So be warned guys, you can't put a standard lock in there. It's this specialized one which has a metal bar that sits at that angle essentially, and that's the standard sit. So basically it goes to there and to back there. So that was tricky, but yeah, a bit of time grinding off with a Dremel, and I managed to get it working. so I can lock the actual panel now. So that is my Vewlix cab, and that is everything I've got set up. So really pleased with the cab. It literally does everything I want. I can use the controls on pretty much everything. It allows me to use my, the Saturn, the Neo Geo CD. I can use the SNES, PlayStation, which I won't use then because I got them on the Mister, but Mega CD, Dreamcast is underneath there. I can use that as well. And any other consoles I decide to plug in here, anything HDMI, I can literally just plug the brook into and use. So super handy. It's very versatile, this cab is. It'll pretty much run everything I want. So anyway guys, that is my Vewlix. I will, like I said, I will try and put all the parts I've used in the description. I'll have a look through my shopping list on Amazon, and if I can find them all, I'll chuck them all and I'll chuck them in the description. So pretty much that's my final setup. I don't think there's anything else I want. I may get some new artwork maybe to put on there, but I think that's probably it. I don't think there's anything else I want. I'm happy with the sound now. It sounds great, and it does everything I want. So I love the Vewlix. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed that. Hope that was helpful for people, and hopefully the parts list would be helpful. So if you've got any questions or anything you need, or any problems you've come across I could help out, just chuck me a message and I'll help out if I can. I will be doing a new volume pot lead, so if I can set it up, I'll try and do a little sort of like tutorial how to make one. It's pretty simple, to be honest, but the parts is the trick to it. So without the right parts, it won't quite work properly. So I'll try and do that maybe in a week or so, once I get the parts in, and at least show everyone how they can make a very cheap volume pot for less than, I think it cost me, parts for about 20 quid, say you could do it for, and a little bit of soldering, but then it'll work perfect. So anyway guys, that's the Vewlix cab. Hope you enjoyed the tour, and say this will be the last video on it now. You'll just catch me in the streams playing it. So take care guys, and speak to you soon. Ta-da.